small. And I think the panel brought that out today in terms of making sure you get all the teams, even the disaster recovery one, which was a new one to me, but security and safety, but actually start with a kind of more proof of concept. So that was really, really interesting. The work we do in the area focuses mainly on overcoming the barriers to adoption, but there's a load of work in there for companies who are starting off their journey. So some of the things that come to my mind, there's a list of use cases, so if you're interested in that. We're actually building the biggest repository of case studies at the moment. So if any of you have got case studies out there, please give me a shout, because we'd like to add it to the repository so we can basically show the world what we're actually doing. We also got a bunch of ROI calculators. We have a really nice process on defining use cases. We have a security maturity self-assessment, which Mr. James Cooper, who from Raytheon is our chair of our security committee and has worked with the team there. And actually, there's a really good innovation framework from idea to impact that Ryan Wheeler, Senior Technical Fellow at Raytheon, will be talking about on Thursday at 10:50, and that's some of the work that the area members have been doing. So, okay, I'm not sure if I've talked enough. If I get a thumbs up from the team there? Perfect, okay. So I'm really excited now to invite Cynthia on the stage. She's going to be talking about something which is really important, and we're seeing more and more, is around that combination of AI and XR, especially in the content bit. So, Cynthia, thank you. Round of applause.
Thanks. Is this thing on? Okay. Everybody can hear me okay, yeah? Hello. This is actually my third time here, and I have to say, for those who are new, like me, you're going to say, I can't wait to go back next year. I'm Cynthia Maller. I run the 3D creative technology team at Walmart. And our charter is to create beautiful, customer-facing imagery on behalf of marketing campaigns. And just to ground us in context for a bit, structural context, we sit within what's called integrated production. So I am a partner to the photography operations. We have a symbiotic relationship. And we sit within the creative team within marketing. David Hartman is the Chief Creative Officer of Walmart, and we sit within that organization. I bring that up because every effort that is made to scale my team is in service to the entire creative organization. We don't work in a vacuum. So when I look at tools to scale my operation, I'm thinking about the kinds of problems I can solve that benefit everybody. For sure, that is making more digital twins. That piece of my operation is not open to interpretation. There's no subjectivity in a 3D model that represents a product. So the use of GenAI for that pipeline is not something yet that we're integrating. Because first of all, right now, it's not broken. We're making pitch-perfect models of Walmart products and our partners' products. The other thing my team does is we build those beautiful tableaus, the rooms in which those products sit, the fit and finish. What style is it? What does the room look like? What is the lighting and composition? That is a subjective art. And that is always a conversation with whomever you're presenting it to. Well, I want it kind of like this, and I want the products over here. So when I was looking at the pieces of our process that maybe could benefit from helping with that communication, this is where GenAI has proven to be very useful. So we're going to talk today about a couple examples of how that's helping. I bring that up because that's the blend. Our 3D model pipeline, like I said, is not a subjective visual conversation. But when we talk to our 3D modelers and we make those inputs, that conversation, as clear as it can be, is important. So today we're going to talk about some things that I've learned along the way in the last couple of years that I hope that will be useful to you. So realizing the benefits of this hybrid approach. After 2 years, I am starting to see things that are significant that I feel will be useful that I can present. And then use cases of how GenAI is enhancing and not disrupting our daily workflow. That's really important because it is fun and people are excited about it, but if we're not solving real problems, and if it's disrupting day-to-day work, it's not something we should be doing on company time. And then we're going to talk about how are we defining the boundaries for usage, legal, ethical, practical. And then we're going to talk about what do we do when I have a vendor who's established and I'm saying to that vendor, this is not a tool that can show up in your final work to us. This is a tool where it's going to come from my team to you. So now what do we do with that relationship where maybe they're feeling like, well, then I'm kind of stuck in the past and you're doing this new thing and I don't feel like I'm being brought along. So those 4 aspects are things that we deal with every day that are, again, interrelated, symbiotic. So the benefits of this hybrid approach. I have to say that I'm not surprised, but what I'm happy about is something that's pretty esoteric to begin with. I want to put this thought out there, and probably I'm not alone in this. Over the course of my career, integrating tools is just part of operationalizing the creative flow. We're always looking at what new tools are out there, and I have an operations arm and a creative arm. And I certainly wouldn't ask the operations team to use Photoshop to do financial analysis and capacity projections. And I certainly wouldn't ask my creative folks to use Excel to do mock-ups. So up until this point, tools that I interjected into the flow were to solve specific problems for specific people and their knowledge. GenAI, I realized, was not built to solve a certain problem. It was built to see what it could do. So for the first time, I'm saying to the entire team, fire it up and see what it can do. And this is a new concept. You know, the operations people are saying, well, I don't know. And the creative people are saying, well, it's not Photoshop, I'm not sure. So there's a hesitation there, and you meet that with education, for sure. But that's fascinating to me, because it's, how do you operationalize that when it is a different tool depending on whose hands it is in? I probably wouldn't try to start my car with my blender or do laundry with a hammer. So in my career, I don't know if I've ever seen a paradigm like this. So it has helped us increase capacity. And that's very important, not because I just want to do more beautiful work, but the more that we can shift into 3D, the more it benefits the organization. Every one of those digital twins is a fungible, portable asset across the enterprise. And the more that I can build my library, every day, every year, it benefits the organization. The more projects that I can intake into the creative organization benefits my photography partners. It shifts work off their plate so that they have time and money for bigger campaigns that I wouldn't work on, but that they definitely need to work on. So it has really made a difference for how much work we can do. And one of the most fascinating things, and again, if you don't know you have a problem, you weren't really looking for something to solve it. But the step in between my creative folks creating that mock-up in Photoshop and the step where the 3D modelers begin their work, that gap, again, it's open to interpretation. That conversation is a place that's so important. Well, I want it like this and the lighting like this. And Photoshop, as great as it is, cannot do a few things that we always need. Lighting, it really can't. Depth of field. And when we're working with little thumbnails of the product to do our composition, sometimes we have to skew them and it looks a little weird. So this art of GenAI has reduced any miscommunication in that moment. And you'll see what I mean. Oh. There we go. Okay. So usually my team, when they're creating these tableaus in Photoshop, they have their imagination, they have what they want to do, but they have to aggregate different pieces. What kind of hardware is it? What kind of lighting? What is the marble texture? And these things are all done with disparate pieces. For sure, it's a very technical deck. Lots of specs are in there, but it's made with disparate pieces. On the other side, you're seeing what happens when they describe that into GenAI. You're seeing something that is cohesive. This is a game changer for us in that conversation between layout and the beginning of modeling. So what's happening with efficiency is, so we do hundreds of thousands of pieces of creative and models every year. So each one of those Photoshop mockups with all the things that go into it is an average of 8 hours. Now with this tool, we are reducing just that one step to 2 hours. And if you multiply that by seasonal campaign requests of 150 requests, you can see that it's a fundamental improvement that we could not have expected. So before GenAI, we had, again, they would say, okay, I want all this hardware, this lighting, and everything, but everything was a separate reference pulled from somewhere else. So it really was, imitation is too tough of a word, but it really was, again, things that already existed that then we aggregated. The mock-up is great, and, you know, like, I get the idea, but like I said, there's a couple things in there that are missing that when we get back that round one render, we usually have to have a conversation about it that leads to a round two. Now, the art directors, we call them aesthetic and technical directors because they do art direction and technical inputs. Now, they can iterate with GenAI, build original pieces that they have in their imagination, build them, put together a cohesive image. And you can see that instead of presenting pieces, they're presenting a holistic image with the composition they want, the lighting they want, and it's round one is ending up looking almost identical. Now, Photoshop does one thing, which is we can use thumbnails of the actual products, and with GenAI-assist, we have to use placeholders. But you can see how from mock-up now, this is what a mock-up looks like on the left, and to round one. It's nearly perfect. Huge operational impact there. So mocking it up, we're saving days. Round one is coming back close to perfect. That's reducing the number of rounds. It's also pretty exciting. There's a really meaningful dopamine hit that happens when you see that coming back like that. So this is the final result. This is full film, not crap, but absolutely beautiful and pretty close to round one. And it's so exciting because the vendors are feeling really good that they're getting an input of everything that's in your mind cohesively and not in separate pieces. So it's making them more successful as well. So the other thing that we want to do is focus our modeling hours on things we're actually going to use. Now, before GenAI-assist, we would do those Photoshop mockups, and we would look at, as best we could, at the props we might want, or the composition we might want, or the particular products, but we wouldn't be able to arrange those with it reacting to the lighting and other types of things, and get the depth of field that we need so that we can really see how we want to compose something. So here's an example. The one on the left was something we were playing with in GenAI. And as we move things like the plant and the lamp and the arrangement, the kind of rug, the type of walls, everything, we could do all of that with GenAI before we then decided what we wanted and we input it to the modeler exactly the way we want it. In this case, the plant, the lamp went, the rug was a different shape, we added some other props. We were able to do all of that before we talked to the modelers. So we didn't have to model the plant, which is difficult, the lamp, none of that. That's huge for us. My team also has to act as architects because they are building sets. And sometimes, in this case, very interesting, this is happening a lot. We got a curation from the editorial team, from the merchandising, that it was back to school. This is the season. They wanted to do dorm room decor. We got the curation, and the image, we work with the Walmart creative team as well. So the creative director for this campaign and the editorial team had a particular idea they wanted for the type of furniture and the look of the room so that it felt authentic to a dorm room. So hang on. So that blueprint on the left is our art director playing with, okay, this is the type of furniture that they wanted, but I'm seeing with placeholders, that is not going to accommodate the decor. It's just not. So before we ever started rendering, we were able to see we're going to need a bigger bookcase. So we were able to mock that up, work with the lighting, work with the architecture, and we were able then to communicate that back to the editorial and creative team so that they understood when they saw the first round, why did we put a bigger bookcase in there? They trust us to choose a Walmart product that's larger, but they would understand, well, why am I not seeing what I told you I wanted? And so the result is on the right there. And we wouldn't have gotten there as fast if we had said, well, they asked for this small bookcase, we better just do that. The modeler would have to model it, all the composition hours of working with those products. Now we can go straight to the architecture that we really want to build to highlight those products. So doing drafts, doing blueprints with GenAI is proving to be very successful. And we work with grayscale just because it's faster. So then the next thing that comes up for all of us, well, how do we use this ethically? How do we follow the law? Whether that's the zeitgeist of law in general that's out there, or whether our own Walmart legal department has guardrails they would like us to follow. How is it that we set this up so that the entire organization, not just my team, understands the guardrails and is keeping compliant? Every company wants to stay compliant. Our attorneys are really partnering well with us on this. They have their areas of expertise, and they're really helping us. And we are listening well, because while we are excited at all the different use cases, we want to stay compliant so that when we want to expand use cases, there's a trust built up there. So what we built is a matrix. And I put this in here for when you have the deck on your own, just to see how have we done it. And we tried to keep it simple rather than a legal document so that everybody could understand. And one of the things that we've decided is that we are using this for pre-visualization, for internal use only. And we have to make that very clear to everyone so that GenAI imagery doesn't end up in front of the customer. For my team, the reason is we have to be precise. One of the measures of success for my team when we make 3D models is mitigating a return. So I don't want to invent something and put it in front of the customer, and then what shows up doesn't look like what I showed them. And so for our vendors, and we'll talk about this next, for our vendors, that could be pretty frightening. It's like, well, everybody out in the world is using AI. You're telling us that we can't, and we're saying, no, we're telling you you can when we're working on mock-ups. But when we go to final, especially my team, everything has to be a 3D model, right? GenAI makes pictures. My team makes enterprise assets. There is a difference. So then we want to train people how to prompt ethically. And what we do is, when we're making imagery, we save every single prompt for two reasons. We want to share it across my team to help teach each other. How did you get that result? Let me see the prompt you use. But also, we need to create an audit trail, 100%. And we need to teach people what is not compliant in a prompt and what is okay. And this is a really large and complex topic. And at the end, you're sitting at your own desk doing this, and you really want to understand what is allowed and what isn't. We actually talk about this a lot. Because creative people, and even creative operations, they're not intellectual property attorneys. This is not something that we've had to think about before. And so we also, it's funny, I'm trying to, my font is really small. I'm going to go over here and read my own slide. So we have to put clear language in vendor contracts, as well as talent contracts. The photography organization deals with talent contracts. So now, whether it's a vendor contract or an actor or anything, a musician, we have to put language in the contract that might include things like, so can we use it for training? So that has to be in there, and that's a conversation with the artist or the company. So also, we have to have that language in there about compliance, all the legal things. Whole new sections of contracts, whole new conversations about licensing and what that means. We also, in the creative department for sure, when we use GenAI, we still want to have those checkpoints to see, is what you're creating really on brand, even in a pre-viz situation. So we aren't just taking the human out of the loop, because we are working also using AI for automation. There's a lot of pieces of our process that would serve us well if we could automate. But we still want to take a look at it. Walmart's brand is paramount. That is how we build trust with our consumers, and we really want to make sure everything we're doing is still communicating along those lines. So compliance checkpoints, in whatever way that would make sense for you. For us, it's looking at the asset that you're creating. So for us, this is a whole new world. Tried to keep it simple, because everybody wants to have this at their desk. I will tell you that at our company, everybody wants to do the right thing. And there's a bit of, in some cases, there's a bit of fear because they don't want to do the wrong thing. And so we have to continue to educate. Now, vendor relationships. So our point of view in Walmart is that GenAI is amplifying the value of our vendors, because we're able to give them clarity up front, right? We talked about how I sit with my 3D vendors and I show them something with GenAI, and it's very clear, and that's really good for them. And so what we're looking at it as something that is helping our partnerships, not getting in the way and not limiting the relationship, and actually creating some bizarre distance, because we have a dissonance of, well, internally, we're using these new tools and we're telling our vendor for final output, no. And we know that probably the other clients that they're working with, they may have different rules there, but we really want to stay true to what we know is compliant. So we have a couple things that we've noticed, and I'll just speak for my team. Clearer briefs, and by brief, I mean that thing that we input to the 3D modeler, and that I work with the Walmart creative team on. I can show them this is exactly what I'm going to do. And the clarity is creating a shared efficiency that really I haven't seen before. I wouldn't say that what we were doing before was broken at all. We were creating beautiful imagery, and the process, we always want to evolve it, but we didn't have this tool before, so the ways that we were solving problems were completely different. And we didn't even know when we started using this, how will it come to play? Will it actually solve real problems, or will it just be really delightful to use? Because for sure it's delightful to use, right? And so we also feel like we're setting ourselves up for the future, because we are allowing the vendors to leverage it, just not for final output. So managing these relationships is important, because we vet our vendors really well. We want to be good clients. We want to maintain the relationships that we've found and that we've built. And this is a whole new world. I hate to be trite, but it is a whole new world. And it's a new piece of the process where everybody on all sides is learning. And I'm going to close with this very not simple thing. On any given day, within yourself, within your team, within the organization, when you are listening to decisions being made, I'm an emotional intelligence practitioner, so I wanted to say to myself, what is the emotional point of view in this meeting or whatever? What is going on? Because it feels a little strange. And that's because you're at one point in this cycle, and it can vacillate minute to minute, but you're either dealing with hype out in the press, another team hyping it to another team, or you're dealing with a bit of hysteria, which means, like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to use this or this other, you know, it's just a little bit of frenetic energy going on, and then hesitation. And we have to be kind to ourselves, to one another, about when we hesitate, because this is not the same as anything else. This is a platform, like we said, that was built to see what it could do. And to some extent, it's a little, you can have hesitation to push those buttons. I'm a figure skater, and you know, sports are always a wonderful, rich area to mine for metaphor. And if I could make this metaphor, when you're learning something new, when there's a new maneuver that either you're going to do or that comes on the scene, there's a lot of hype. Everybody wants you to do it. You see everybody else doing it. And then there's the hysteria of practicing it day after day and falling and falling and falling and getting embarrassed, getting yelled at, all of that hysteria. Then you master it, and now there's a hesitation. Well, should we put this in the routine? I'm not sure. Do you really feel confident that you're going to be able to land it every single time? So to me, it's a little bit like that at work. And I hope that this has been useful for you. For us, it represents a really exciting time. I'm seeing levels of efficiency I didn't even know were possible. This seemed like, well, this is really cool. Let's play with it and see what it does. And all of a sudden, it is solving real problems that have an impact throughout the enterprise. And that's just really good news. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you. Okay, amazing. Really enjoyed, learnt a lot there, Cynthia. Thank you very much. Okay, it's time for a break. Please be back here for 11:35 sharp. There's an amazing panel with this really good-looking chap moderating, me. Thank you very much for your attention. See you at 11:35.